Hello and welcome to Encore. Coming up on today's music show, Cyndi Lauper deviates from the path of pop, taking a detour to Nashville for her new country-influenced album. Antipodean artist Keith Urban is moving away from his Dixie sound as his new record reaches out to electro and rap fans with a little help from some star producers.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
And could he knock Beyoncé off the top spot? Canadian rapper Drake storms into the digital charts with his fourth solo album.
Late night when you need.
Well, for all of that, I'm joined by our music critic, Mariam Saab. Hi, Mariam.
Hello, Olivia.
Starting with a blast from the past, Cyndi Lauper. She's taken a swerve in a new direction for the very aptly named Detour album. Bit of a new sound from her.
Well, Cyndi Lauper's chameleon-like ability to change skins has won her a Tony, an Emmy, and a Grammy, and sold 50 million records. And bless her wild heart, the 80s feminist pop icon Southern Detour is a real trailblazer. If country's not your thing, you have to hear it run through Cyndi Lauper's Technicolor mill, shaking up the classics made famous by the likes of Dolly Parton, Patsy Cline, and Wanda Jackson. Let's take a look at Funnel of Love, Lauper style.
Here I go, going down, down, down. My mind is a flying, my head is a spinning around and around. I go deeper in the funnel of love. It's such a crazy, crazy feeling. I peak in the knees, my poor old head is reeling around. I go deep into the funnel of love.
Okay, so aside from 10-gallon hats, cacti, and cowboy boots, what else can we expect from this record?
Well, duets with legends in the game, Willie Nelson, Emmylou Harris, Vince Gill, and a yodeling Jewel, interpreting what Lauper calls the roots of rock and roll. This is an uncharted territory, following on from her jazz standards collection At Last and her blues cover album Memphis Blues. So why is she sidestepping her way over to country? Let's hear from the madam of the moment.
I've known Seymour Stein for a long time, and I've always wanted to work with him. And he came to see me while I was on tour. We had a talk. He suggested that I do these old songs. He was under the impression I can sing anything. I was like, wow, yeah, sometimes. And then he just started playing me these old country western songs that were very much like blues songs, and you know, I was in a rockabilly band, so it's not a far stretch, and I've always loved it, and it's on my bucket list.
The singer will be cooking her cowgirl boots in Nashville on Monday with Boy George, kicking off her tour in the capital of country. And if you want to catch her award-winning show tunes, hit musical Kinky Boots, which was composed by Cyndi Lauper, is playing at Adelphi Theatre in London. Definitely one to watch.
Okay, well, we're staying with country music, which is possibly a first here on Encore. Keith Urban made his name with the genre, but he's keen to branch out on his new record, Ripcord. So let's get a taste of his 8th studio album. This is Wasted Time. Well, it definitely sounds like Keith Urban. There's no mistaking his voice, of course. What else have we got on the record?
Well, from Ganjo licks to electro synth to rap breaks, Urban pulls the ripcord on his 8th studio album, experimenting with a really diverse pool of talent on this one. He does count on his voice to anchor it in country, as you said, going guitar to guitar with one of the best in the business, Chic founder and disco great Nile Rodgers, who pulled out the 6th string for Aretha Franklin, David Bowie, and Daft Punk. Urban and Rodgers Rogers wound up writing Sun Don't Let Me Down, and surprise, Pitbull jumps in on this one. Bold choice of songwriters on this record. He partnered with Jeff Bashka, who's behind Kanye West and Mark Ronson's hits, jazz trombonist turned songwriter Busby, who wrote for Backstreet Boys and Shakira, and Greg Wells of Adele fame. So
very, very new collaborations there, going in a perhaps more modern direction.
yes, but also he brings it back to home and does something a little bit more familiar, teaming up with Carrie Underwood on the duet The Fighter. Really digging deep and setting the tone for the album is the opener Gone Tomorrow Here Today. It was actually inspired by Keith Urban's desire to really live in the moment, which is a key part of his recovery. He battled substance abuse in the early 2000s. Now, he put pen to paper after grieving the loss of his father and the father of his wife, actress Nicole Kidman, and the suicide of his best friend. So this was a very personal record for Keith Urban. Now, the album is actually launching with a live streaming concert via Tidal.
Now indeed, speaking of Tidal, it has been a bit of a battle of the streaming services recently. That is Tidal versus Apple. Drake is on track to have the biggest sales week of his career with his new album, which has been released exclusively on iTunes, on the Apple platform. Could he really be selling more than Beyoncé on Tidal?
Well, it definitely looks like that is on the cards. He sold more than 600,000 within the first day of its release. Not just for the record, also One Dance from the album, featuring Nigerian Afrobeat star Wizkid and sampling Kyla, has actually surpassed Adele's Hello in the UK for the most streams in its first week. A bonus track from Views. We're going to take a look now at one of Drake's biggest hits. This is Hotline Bling.
You used to call me on my cell phone, late night when you need my love. Call me on my cell phone, late night when you need my love. And I know when that hotline blink, that can only mean one thing. I know when that hotline
Well, I think we can be sure that he's set for success with that record. But what about the content? Because he's not just rap, Drake.
No, Drake has a genre of his own, it seems. He really mixes up R&B, pop and rap, and he settles back into his own groove on this record, channeling angst into hooks on his fourth solo album, Views. Now, formerly Views from the Six, as the title suggests, it was inspired by his hometown, Toronto. At 82 minutes, it's a long-winded introspection, the kind of which we've come to really expect from the rapper, known and often mocked for wearing his heart on his sleeve. His right-hand producer, Noah 40 Shabib, touches 12 of the album's 20 tracks, bringing Drake really into that melancholy sound for much of Views. Always cast as the victim on one track, Redemption, Drake laments a woman selling his secrets to the tabloids. Now, a few lyrically cornball Drakeisms, as they've come to be known. The rapper says he's packing so much jewelry that he's chaining Tatum, which is a bit of a cheesy line from Drake. But it doesn't really matter what we think, and I actually really love this record. But Drake, as self-assured as ever, says that it's a classic.
Okay, well, moving from someone who's got established success to perhaps more of a rising star, French singer Jane is set to be the darling of the French summer music festivals here after the success of her first album. Mariam, can you describe her sound for us?
Well, she's heavily influenced by African culture like reggae and rumba, and her voice really does set her apart from the pack. Lots of buzz about Jane right now in France. She was nominated for the Victoires de la Musique, which is the French equivalent to the Grammys this year, for album revelation of her year. Very interesting aesthetic as well. She's always dressed in a very clinical looking black and white dress. She says it's an artistic choice, her way of steering clear of the guitar strumming reggae singer cliche. For more, here's a report on Jane.
This song has gone viral, and her album has almost gone. Meet Jane, the 24-year-old singer, globetrotter, and cultural chameleon. Due to her father's work, she grew up in Africa and the Middle East, and you can hear it. Listen to these few bars. It might not be obvious from the start, but this small fragment includes influences from across the globe. First of all, the breathing. It comes from South Africa and was a favourite of Miriam Makeba, who Jane admires. And can you identify this instrument? It's an Indian sitar inspired by a trip there. And that bass line mixed with a more Middle Eastern beat? That's a bass guitar, and it's a recipe for success.
I heard sounds I didn't know, I heard rhythms I didn't know, and it was really one big journey of discovery. For instance, I went in a taxi, and I don't know, I went to places where there were crowds. There was always music, and that really affected me in a big way.
One of the reasons that her album Zanaka is so rich is that it was written in the four corners of the earth. Little Mama in Jamaica with reggae influences. City in Congo, the first place where Jane felt at home. And Paris, written in France after the November attacks. It's maybe the only part of her music where you feel sadness rather than cheer.
Well, we're wrapping things up with a special pick from you, Mariam, your pick of the week. Who are you throwing the spotlight on this time?
Well, this is ex-Scum singers Thomas Cohen's first solo album, Bloom Forever, and it really is a devastating triumph, an emotional release. It was the first record since his wife of 18 months, Peaches Geldof, died of a heroin overdose 2 years ago at the age of 23. She was the daughter of Bob Geldof and Paula Yates, who tragically died the same way. She left behind 2 young children with Cohen. Now, from Country Home, a track on the album which is brutally honest, describes the moment that he found her lifeless body in their country home, to a Beatles-inspired lullaby written to celebrate the birth of their second child, which the album is actually named after. It ends with Mother Mary, which is a song about the acceptance that Thomas Cohen has come to discover. Definitely an artist worth watching.
Okay, and a very personal record there. Thank you, Mariam, for being with us this week. We'll leave you with this track, Hazy Shades, from Thomas Cohen's solo album. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.